And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Dr. Kathleen Ball, professional artist, researcher, traveler, and explorer of ancient sites. She also had a life-altering near-death experience in 1990, and she discovered a cave in Brazil that had Templar night graffiti in it, which we're going to talk about and more. Dr. Ball, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Oh, you're very welcome, Jeff. I was really looking forward to the show today, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. And Kathleen, if you don't mind, let's start on the day that you had that NDE and go from there.
Well, it kind of goes, I have to go back a little bit because my life, I was born into a family. My father was a professor. My mother was an artist. And, everything looked wonderful. I had after high school, I was going to Europe. Once I finished my college education, down payment for a home, all that stuff was set in place. I was raised in an upper middle class family in Northern California. But that all changed when my parents separated. I was 11 years old when it finally, the final separation. And my mother had a breakdown and my life just immediately went downhill. And I knew spiritually, at age 11 that things were going to shift. I knew that. I had known somehow intuitively that this lifetime was going to be a difficult lifetime and that there was a reason why I was here. I didn't know what that was yet, but I knew that I had to be prepared for it. And when I turned 11, I saw that happening. My parents separated. I remained with my mother, which was not a healthy situation. Anyway, so things just began to progress in a really sort of negative way. I left home when I was 14. I moved down to Southern California, married early, had a child, blah, blah, blah. Got dabbled. I really didn't get heavily into drugs and alcohol, but enough to where it was having an effect on my life. So when I turned 18, I was modeling and I was working at this restaurant in Van Nuys, California. And a man came in and sat at the counter, and I believe that he was a Sufi master. He asked me to sit down, and we were in this time bubble. I don't know what else it could have been. I was late to work, so I was worried about, repercussions from my boss, but everything just stopped at that moment. And he began to tell me what the purpose of my life was and what my life was going to look like, how it's going to unfold. And I'm not going to get into detail, but basically every single thing he said in that conversation came to pass. At 22, I was dating a fellow who was the bodyguard for Waylon Jennings, and we were on the road with Willie and Waylon and all the people, Johnny Paycheck, all of them. We were in Tahoe and having a really good time. We were enjoying ourselves. Anyway, Willie was going through some rough times, and I was also contemplating leaving this relationship, but I didn't know how really to navigate that. And he sat me down for an hour and 45 minutes. We had this wonderful conversation. I was 22 years old, I'll talk about that in a minute, but he basically asked me, what did I really want to do with my life? And we just talked about God. We talked about everything. It was a wonderful conversation. And I appreciate that to this. I have that in my book. I was really appreciative of that, of someone stepping in and, seeing someone struggling and, making that decision to help and to guide and help to, get someone on a different path. I really appreciate that Willie stepped in and did that for me, with me, and I consider him a friend as a result of that. Anyway, so 22 years old, but, life still wasn't great. And at 33, I was pretty beaten down, still working as a waitress, not getting anywhere, just felt like the world was not a good place, and I didn't see how anything was ever going to change. And so I decided that I didn't want to be here anymore. And so I sat up one night and I wrote out my last will and testament. And I laid down in my bed and I asked God to take my life. And to anyone contemplating something like this, be careful what you ask for, because if you want it with all your heart, you'll get it. It will happen. And that's what happened. I stopped breathing. My heart stopped. I was immediately just sort of projected out of my body. I didn't feel like I was in my body anymore. I was in an other dimensional reality. And it was the most beautiful place. It wasn't a place. It's hard to describe because it wasn't physical like we have here on the three-dimensional realm that we call, our everyday life. It was ethereal, very ethereal, no density. We just barely see the forms that were sort of swirling around me, that I got the impression were angelic type beings. I was encompassed by this sense of love and light that I experienced as God. I believe to this day that was my creator. And it permeated every aspect of who I was, everything of who I was. And all these swirling forms were just emanating this love and light to me. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. At some point, I have no idea how long I was in this state, but at some point, it was conveyed to me telepathically that I needed to make a decision of whether I wanted to stay there or if I wanted to return to the three-dimensional reality and continue my life. And I was really perplexed at that moment because I really didn't want to come back here. But it was also conveyed to me that if I didn't, I was going to have to relive that life over anyway. So because it was, I was learning, my soul was learning, and there were lessons that I needed to learn. And this particular lifetime was the only way. And I chose, apparently, before I was born, I chose that life. So I got to remember all that, and I got to see my destiny. I got to see the beautiful things what I experienced, what I believe that the earth is potentially capable of, and a future reality that we can co-create on this planet. Very different from the reality that we have been experiencing here up to date. And so I just was filled with that goal, with that vision in my heart and in my soul. And I said, okay, I agree. I will come back. I will return to the three-dimensional reality. And I'm committed to doing whatever I can to bring this better, this more beautiful, this more harmonic state of being into reality. And I don't care if it's in my lifetime or future, but I am dedicated to that. So within seconds, I felt I was popped back into my body. I felt this thud and I couldn't breathe, and my heart was not beating. And I just prayed with all my heart, I want to live. I want to live more than anything. I want to live. And because I really now wanted to be this person that was committed to assisting with bringing this better reality. I really wanted that more than anything at that moment. And I remember catching my first breath. I remember feeling my first heartbeat. I laid there for a few moments and I was just filled with this sense of joy. I just felt this sense of just pure joy at being alive, at having the opportunity to assist with something that was bigger than me, that was much more beautiful than I had ever known on this planet. And I just was filled with this joy. I just felt this sense of joy. And I remember feeling when I when I got out of bed, I felt like I was walking about 6 inches off the ground. It was a very bizarre feeling, but I felt like my body was lighter, and that lasted for, I don't know, several days. It was quite a while before that actually started dissipating, and I started feeling like I was really in a three-dimensional body again. But I painted this. I did a series of 3 paintings of this experience, and it's impossible to capture, a multidimensional experience with 2-dimensional paint, on a canvas. But I did the best that I could at capturing it. I have one, it's Angelic encounter, I have soul encounter, and then I have creator. I have illuminated by my creator. That this was the last one and that I did. And they captured to some degree, although I feel like they fail because I can't capture that ethereal realm. They capture, and they're wonderful reminders to me, and I have them in my home. I have those paintings in my home. But so when I came back, here I am. I don't have my waitress job. I had lost that job. I'm in this place of limbo. I'm on unemployment at this point, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do. And I'm just hungry for knowledge, for wisdom, for esoteric beliefs. I wanted to know everything about our ancient belief systems. I felt that there was something lost, something that we needed to retrieve from this planet that had been hidden from us, or that had been intentionally buried. I didn't know what, but I just felt like I was searching, and I wanted to illuminate whatever it was from our ancient beginnings, and bring that somehow into the minds of people, and bring that back into, the understanding, the common understanding and common awareness of the masses, basically. So I began archaeological digs. I began reading. I was reading about 5 books a week at that point. I read the Bible like 200-300 times, searching in the Old Testament for symbols and clues, and there is a great deal. And Revelations, I read the rest of it too, but those were the 2 books that I was mostly interested in. I read the Dead Sea Scrolls. I read the Gnostic Gospels. I read the Tao of Physics. I mean, I was reading, like I said, I had a library of 5,000 books when my house burned to the ground in the Butte Fire in 2015. And I had read probably 95% of those books. So that will I read quantum physics, every spiritual belief system, just you name it, biology, just all sorts of stuff, nuclear physics, just all kinds of things. I was just interested in craving all this knowledge. So what do you do with that? What's the point? Well, what I was doing was collecting, doing sort of comparative studies. My mind was doing this huge comparative study with all of this information. And I became convinced that there were civilizations that preceded what we've always known as what we call ancient history collectively that we understand. I was convinced that there were civilizations that existed before that. And I discovered, a lot of information on Atlantis, Lemuria, and then the past life things started happening. I started having past life experiences and memories, and I did some regressions. I also, when I go to ancient places like in Greece and Italy, in Egypt, when I went to Egypt, all 4 times I was in Egypt, I had past life memories were triggered. Places in South America, when I was in South America, when I did my first ayahuasca experience in Peru, I had like a whole review of past life experiences flashed, like a newsreel in front of me. And And all of those were aspects of my being, of my soul's growth. And what I carried forward with me was what's pertinent for my life, for this life right now, which involved forgiveness of myself for past things that had happened, understanding at a much deeper level, understanding relationships with people that I had been involved with, that I knew on some deeper level, but then now knowing what my relationship was with them, what my actual relationship was, my spiritual relationship with them. So that went on for quite a bit. And every once in a while, I still do have a past life experience that will pop up. But it's not, a lot of people give attention to, well, who were you in a past life? That's irrelevant. What's important is the information that you derive, and how can that be useful in this life today for your evolutionary process of your soul. That's really the importance of these past life experiences. There might be forgivenesses, there might be things you need to let go of so you can change patterns in your life. There's all sorts of things, but it's basically for the betterment of your experience now. That's why those memories are useful. So, these kind of things just started happening. I got involved in spiritual groups. I put together study groups so that we could discuss these things. Once I got, finished my degree, I started working at colleges, and I was teaching in the art department. The beauty about teaching in the art department is art encompasses everything. It just covers everything. And so I was able to teach about not just art, but the history of art. And I was also able to teach about the esoteric backgrounds of the civilizations that I had been researching and discovering. All of these things I got to, put into my weekly lecture that would just I'd get people from all over the campus come in for these lectures because it was a discussion lecture. I didn't just give the information. I also encouraged questions and discussions. So this went on for 15 years, and at Columbia, especially Columbia. And, the students loved it. I loved it. It was a wonderful, wonderful growth experience for all of us to exchange ideas and express our beliefs via our artwork. And, I had amassed a huge body of work by this time that was all destroyed in the Butte fire in about 3 minutes. So, but the reason I laugh about that is because during that, right after we left, we had 15 minutes to get out. CAL FIRE had no idea the fire was anywhere near our area. So we had 15 minutes to get out of this area. And we went over to, at the time, we had another property over in El Dorado County. We went there. And that night when I laid down, I had this dream state vision that I was in the middle of the fire. And I painted this too, by the way, but I was in the middle of the fire and I was watching all of my belongings and everything that I'd had all my life being transformed back into the subatomic state. And then it was like I was gifted all of these atoms and everything to take and recreate my life however I chose. So it was a gift. I saw this as I didn't choose to liquidate everything I own, but it happened. And so I got the gift of being able to take the money that came from the insurance and all that and recreate my life. And then, like I said, I had a liver transplant about 6.5 weeks later. So I had a year recovery from that I had that time to decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I chose to do what I'm doing now. I chose to write books. I chose to do documentaries. I chose to lecture internationally, take people to these ancient sites and some of the places that I had been, and just continue to talk about a shifting of consciousness that's happening now worldwide, globally, and how can we achieve that collectively? How can we achieve a better world. And so these are the things that I'm discussing now. These are the things that, I call it a Grail quest because I discovered a Knights Templar cave in Brazil in 2015, right before all this happened, the fire, etc. And so I kind of, it's my quest has been really kind of a parallel to what the Templars, went through in the, the 11th century to the 14th century before they were, some of them were annihilated and ended up going underground. But the challenges that you go through on a Grail quest are the same. The actual incidences are irrelevant. It's the fact that you surmount the challenges that you have to go through in order to continue with your destiny, with your path on a Grail quest. So these are what's important, is just continuing to face and walk through the challenges that you're faced with during a Grail quest. And this is what I have been doing now for almost 34 years here. We're coming up on about 34 years that this transformation originally took place on March 11th of 1990. So, now what I want to, what I'm moving into is I'm starting to do some conferences and things like that. And I'm writing my second book. I'm also releasing my second documentary this year. That is a continuation of the discovery of the Templar cave in Brazil. And I can just talk about that a little bit. I'm going to be covering the inside of the cave, the symbols and the graffiti that the Templars left inside that cave in Brazil, and how they correlate to other places in Portugal, in France, and in Turkey, by the way. So I'm going to talk about, some of those kind of things. I'm also going to talk about another amazing experience that happened in the Amazon jungle as a result of my quest to find out how the Templars got from Bahia, the coast of Brazil, into central Brazil. And apparently they were taken there, they were guided there by the Amazonian tribes. So I was invited to interview a couple of the Amazonian tribal chiefs. Well, unfortunately, in 2021, when I was there, they had COVID like everywhere else, and the tribes decided to stay in the Amazon jungle where they were safer, because normally they would come into Alto Paraíso, which is where I found the cave, every year to do some sacred ceremonies, because it's a very spiritual area. It's an amazing, beautiful area. Well, so 2021, they didn't come in, but I was invited to come into the Amazon jungle by the Queen people, Amazonian tribe, by Assis, their chief. And I was invited to come in and live with them and interview them and talk with them. So I was getting ready to, pack up and leave to come back to the US. And I asked my photographer, hey, you want to stay another, 10 days? I hired a translator, and off we went into the Amazon jungle. And we ended up living with the Queen people. But what I want to talk about, which is so amazing here, is I had my second, well, actually it was my fourth, but my second full experience with ayahuasca. They invited me into their ceremonies, and I mean, just living with them day to day, this was part of their not daily, but a part of their experience that they did to keep their tribe healthy. And so I participated in this ayahuasca ceremony, and the chief asked me, he said, what is it that you want with your heart? What do you desire? What is your heart's desire? And I said, honestly, I want to get off these anti-rejection meds because they're killing me. I've already lost my hearing and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, let's work on that. So anyway, so during this experience, this was much different, by the way. Ayahuasca, anyone who is interested in that, go to Brazil if you're interested in doing that, because it's a much softer, a more loving, very, very different experience. I found in Peru, it like hits you over the head like a hammer. But in Brazil, in amongst the Huningqueen people, it was very soft, a very loving, just a completely different method of the experience itself. Anyway, so what happened as a result of that is I had been off anti-rejection meds since July of 2021 after having a liver transplant. So I look at this as a huge experience in my Grail quest because, you know, as Percival drank from the cup and had a complete healing, well, basically that's the same thing happened with me. And there's something really, really profound about this too that I found out later. I just found this out recently. I was at spoke at the Disclosure Fest conference in Las Vegas last year at the end of the year. And Timothy Hogan is there. And I'd wanted to connect with him for a long time. Anyway, I was having a conversation with him. And what it turns out is that ayahuasca has many of the same properties as what they call the blood of Christ, which is the fifth alchemical stage. After you get the white mana, you take it into the fifth alchemical stage and you get this red liquid that is referred to as the blood of Christ, that is a healing liquid. That's what is said to have was contained in the Holy Grail cup that Percival discovered. Anyway, so this fifth stage liquid called the blood of Christ is a reddish colored liquid, having the same constituent, basically the same properties as ayahuasca. It was this huge parallel that very profound experience. It was like I had been on an initiation process, initiatory Grail quest, all on my own, basically, led by what I feel is a higher power that has guided me throughout this process. Ever since my near-death experience, I had never lost that connection. And I feel like, you know, I haven't had to be involved or a membership of any esoteric belief system, although I am, but I've never gotten anything close to what I've experienced on my own, with my own initiatory experiences, just by allowing my intuition and my higher power to guide me. So, you know, I haven't, it's really kind of a unique experience, but I think that there's many other people, and I really would like to reach out to those people who have had their own experiences based on intuition, based on, you know, stepping out on their own and just going out on a whim or on a heart's desire, going somewhere where they always felt like they wanted to go or they needed to go and having some profound experience. This is how it started for me. And, you know, I really would like to connect with this audience of people that have had these experiences and don't know how to explain them, because I think that each and every one of these experiences are valid. And I also believe that these are what we have termed Grail quest experiences that ultimately continue to lead us through the evolutionary processes that our soul needs to grow and to mature. And I think that is really the purpose of life on this three-dimensional crazy world, you know, that we live on.
Thank you for sharing your life with us, Kathleen. I first want to bring you back to your NDE.
Okay.
When your heart first stopped, was it due to taking pills or something, or what caused that?
No, I hadn't taken anything. And that was what was really, you know, people ask me, well, did you overdose on something? No, I did not overdose on anything. I had some substances in my body from earlier that day, but it was not anywhere near enough. I never took a lot of anything. So it wasn't as a result of anything. This was just simply a surrender to death. Because I didn't believe, I firmly believed that we did not have, I thought it was a sin to commit suicide. And so I turned it over to what I called my God at that time to take my life. And that's what happened. I stopped breathing and my heart stopped. So this is why I caution people, unless you really want to bring something on like this, don't ask for it.
When you were told that you had to relive this life, did they mean that you had to live another life like this one that is similar, or time travel back and literally relive the life?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's what they meant. Like I've said, earlier, the circumstances are irrelevant. It's the challenges. It's what you derive from the challenges, how you experience those challenges, how you surmount those challenges. That's the point. That's what causes the growth. That's what causes the epiphany, the wisdom that begins to develop, that you begin to embody. You can't move forward. A grail quest, a spiritual journey, any of these things are not a walk in the park. It is not for the lighthearted. It's not for anyone who doesn't truly wish to evolve spiritually. And anyone who does, I mean, you have to be prepared for hardship and challenges. And I have had a tremendous amount of challenges. Everyone who knows me they say, I would never want your life. I couldn't live your life. I could never have lived your life. Everyone that's ever known me has said that to me because it's been extremely difficult. Even to date, I'm still dealing with stuff, stuff that challenges that come. And I just have this attitude now that, okay, give me your best shot.
Is there anywhere?
I'm gonna move forward anyway, so let's do it. Okay, let's dance. You know what I mean? That's really how I feel about it now. So
If anybody wants to see your paintings of your NDE, do you have them posted on a website or something?
yeah, I do have a collection of paintings actually, and Soul Encounters is on there. I'm not sure if the other two, but I know that Soul Encounters is on that website, and it's KABALL art.com. KBallart.com is the website. And also on my Facebook page and Instagram pages, and also TikTok and LinkedIn, oftentimes I will post my artwork. So, people can go to my page, the Templars in Brazil Facebook page, or Kathleen Ann Ball Facebook page. And you can scroll down at any time and you can see a lot of my artwork. And Soul Encounter and Angelic Encounter are both on there. The other one, the last one I did, is so ethereal. The paint is so like an impressionist style that it's really difficult to photograph. So that one I have yet to put on any of my sites because it's just really difficult to photograph, to capture. So
since you've had the NDE and you've done ayahuasca, can you compare the two? And would you say they're similar or completely different?
They are similar in some ways and completely different in others. The similarities are that you often can experience, like I said, that newsreel of past lives before your eyes, and you get a depth, a much deeper sense of the depth of your soul. During ayahuasca, you actually get to see what you were created from, how you were created, all the atoms, the cells of your being. I literally went into the cells and it went into like this microscopic little atom and went inside my cells and did some transfiguration in my liver and in my body that resulted in, I could see it happening. It was like lights, these little lights, photons going in there and transforming my body. So where ayahuasca is more a tool that you can use to surmount addictions. I've heard people overcome heroin addictions instantaneously, just like that. Drug addictions, health issues. It's very useful for overcoming health issues because you can go in and manipulate your actual biological makeup, and you can have an impact and change your own physiology. So in that sense, the near death, I got to see and experience all of creation, multi dimensions, multi universes. But the ayahuasca was more what was going on in my own body, although that does mirror the cosmic, activity that's going on. The universe is the birth of stars. Although that is, we are small, as above, so below, right? So we are little worlds. We are little universes. So that mirrors what's going on in the universe and in the cosmos. That is what's going on in our bodies. But with ayahuasca, you're actually bypassing something that's going on in our brain when we're here, when we're, in this three-dimensional reality. We're actually bypassing something that helps us to understand that we have the tools innately to heal ourselves, if that makes sense. Where for some reason, while we're here in this three-dimensional reality, I have not, well, no, I can't say that because I did achieve that state one other time. I healed some internal things that were going on in my female organs in 1991 with the same type of prayer that I did to have the near-death experience. But I haven't had that since. And I did have to go through, almost 27 years of liver disease before I had that, that transplant, and then ultimately the healing from the anti-rejection meds. But ayahuasca was a direct tool to assist me to bring about an outcome in my physiological being that I desired. But you got to really mean it. You've got to really want it. This isn't, ayahuasca is not a recreational drug. It is not something that you want to go and have an ayahuasca party. It's not that. It's something that you can use to increase your own ability at self-reflection. You can use it for healing. It is definitely a useful tool. Graham Hancock talks about this too, and I have a lot of respect for him breaking that taboo of talking about these kinds of things, because it gave other people permission to do the same. But he also talks about ayahuasca and some of his ayahuasca experiences as being very valid and very useful. I think that there's been something or whatever that has kind of limited us and our beliefs for thousands of years and kept us from some of these things that are truly useful for our spiritual growth. And, and I personally believe that was, it's for the interest of a few to continue to enslave humanity. But that's changing, and those entities are being uprooted, and things are shifting. I'm really seeing a shift happening over the last 20 to 25 years. I'm really seeing and feeling an energetic shift.
Who are those entities?
Well, I wouldn't like to know, because I don't really, those are not entities or people that I would probably ever want to associate with. But I believe that they also understand the esoteric principles that mystical principles. And I think they practice them for their own end, not for the collective. And I think that they have subjugated mankind for probably close to what I can see, at least 10 to 12,000 years, if not longer. And I think that they would choose to do so infinitely if they thought they could get away with it. I do believe that this is what is behind the whole AI movement, is to eventually, inspire everyone to become these AI beings, because then no one would have a soul. And our soul is our connection with our creator. So that's not something we want to give up. We don't want to trade that in for this AI, whatever, But I do think that's where they're pushing towards, is this AI agenda. And, you see all these knee transplants and hip transplants and, replacements and blah, 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 and all this. We're slowly but surely becoming bionic, and, the diseases that are rampant right now, it puts people into a lot of fear that this is the way they need to move, because that's the propaganda that has been designed to move us there by whoever these people are that are behind it. But they won't be successful, because there's too many people like myself that believe that we were created naturally to evolve physically and spiritually just the way we are. We're perfectly fine. Our bodies are the same. Our bodies literally resonate at the same frequencies that dirt does, the soil. When I studied frequencies and all that sort of stuff, our bodies, our physical, biological makeup is basically resonating at the same frequencies that the earth does. So our bodies were designed to be supported and on the earth, and to be compatible with this environment, not this AI thing. That is foreign.
To change gears a little here, what gave you the desire to go look for a cave down in Brazil?
This is what has been leading me through to, everywhere I go. Gosh, I have had so many spiritual experiences that I feel like my higher self and my intuition has guided me to. Let's back up to 2009. My first love and I got back together. We were reunited in 2008. We got married in 2009, and we went to France on a honeymoon. The whole plan that we had planned went out the window, and we ended up on this very spontaneous, in the moment, traveling adventure, part of the Grail quest. We ended up at this one point, I wanted to go to Dome, France, because I wanted to see this art exhibition. I had no idea that there was a dungeon where the Templars had been held. I had no idea. And there was also a grotto that I wanted to see that was supposed to have some pictographs or something in it. Anyway, I wasn't impressed with that. And I'm coming up from that experience. And the curator from this little museum there in Dome, he comes up to me and he looks right at me, and I got this spiritual experience again. And he said, "How would you like to see where the Templars were held before they were killed?" He said, "There's a dungeon over here," and he hands me the keys, and he walks me over there, and he says, "This is where they were held. Explore," he didn't say explore, he used another word, but, take as much time as you like, madame, and bring me the keys when you're done. So he literally hands me the keys to this place and leaves. And so my husband and I are in there, and I photographed everything that was in there, all the graffiti that was in there. That same adventure led me to Marseille, to a nun who embraced me, said she had been waiting for me since college. She was obviously in her late 50s, and that she had learned English so that she could speak to me when I came. I didn't know her physically, but I felt some familiarity when she hugged me, and she's embraced me, and she's got tears, and I mean, it was obviously a very emotional experience for her. She hustled me off into her studio and she drew me a map that went to St. Bone, which is where Mary Magdalene had lived in intercessory prayer for 17 years after she had evangelized and gone through Europe with Lazarus and Martha and the other Mary, and the children were raised. So I went up there. I had this amazing spiritual experience in St. Bone. And now I have that experience. I have this connection with Mary Magdalene. I've got this footage of the Templar graffiti in Dome. Okay, so I take that back and I start writing about these things. And, nothing happens until 2015, 6 years later. Fast forward, I'm in Brazil. I was not looking for a cave. I was out there hiking with my girlfriend, and we were waiting to see John of God for healing for my liver. And he wasn't available. So we went up to Alto Paraíso to explore these beautiful waterfalls in the Chapada National Forest Park. And that's why we were there. So we come up from one of these beautiful waterfalls, Agua Fria. And we come up, and the owner of the Camping Pousada, which is a camping, pousada means motel, a hotel, or a place to rest in Brazilian Portuguese. He invites us to lunch, and he says, how would you ladies like to see this adjacent property over here? There's this beautiful crystal vein that goes through the whole property, and there's these beautiful Brazilian crystals that you can collect, and you can, and we said, yeah, we would love to. So we went over there, and he introduced us to this guide who met us at the property over there next door. And he takes us on this 4 or 5 kilometer hike straight down a mountainside. And we end up at this amazing crystal vein that it was about 1 meter in width, about 1 meter in height. And it went probably a good 2.5, maybe somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 kilometers right through the middle of this property. And they're true to its word. There's all these crystals, huge, beautiful Brazilian crystals, and we're collecting a few of them. And it's hot. It's really hot. So he says to us, the guide says to us, he said, well, there's this little cave just about another kilometer or so straight down the hill, and we can rest in there and have snacks and rejuvenate before we head back up the hill. Sure, that sounded great. So we followed him down to this, it looked like nothing but jungle. There was this small path, and it was crystals all along this path. There was just crystals everywhere. Anyway, he lifts up the bushes, and I literally just stopped in my tracks. And I just said to him, I said, oh my God, what is a Knights Templar cross doing in the middle of Brazil? And he rattled off a bunch of stuff in broken Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, which I did. I actually interviewed him, which I had translated later. He rattled off a bunch of stuff about this was a cave where the old women came to pray and do magic. He didn't know about the Templars. Anyway, so we tried to go in the cave, but we can't because it's filled with bats and spiders. So I didn't get to see much. I just took a real quick video, but I really didn't get to record much. And so in 2015, I had that transplant. I couldn't do anything. In 2016, I was recovering. 2017, I went back to Brazil to try to rediscover the cave. They had a huge fire. It burned the whole area, 1,500 hectares. I mean, just massive land. Right, my cave is right smack in the middle of this fire, right? So I can't get in, but I got to hire a photographer who had actually worked for Jacques Cousteau many years before that. And he had actually lived in Santa Cruz. So we had this wonderful conversation. He agreed to come back with me in 2018 and film The Rediscovered. So at least I have that. So I went on from there into Peru to go see some friends in Peru. And I had always wanted to get down to Paracas and meet with Brian Forster and his partner Irene. And so I did that and some other things. I rented a car and spent the rest of my trip traveling Peru, Lake Titicaca, went into Nazca, just all over. Anyway, so 2018, fast forward, here we are, 2018, I'm back, I meet with this fellow. We spend 3 days trying to find this cave again. We cannot find it. The terrain has all been changed completely. And I tune into my intuition. I said, if we can just find the crystal vein, I can find the cave. And so we can't find it. The third day, he's ready to give up. I mean, he's just ready to pack it up and get out. He's been carrying all this heavy equipment, photography equipment. So I'm just begging him at this point. I know it's here. I was there. I know it's here. And I happen to look over and I see what I think is part of this crystal vein sticking up out of the terrain. And I said, okay, hold on. I'm going to run over here. So I did. Sure enough, we found the crystal vein. And so I walk both. I go one direction and then I come back the other direction. And I happen to look over and see this, what looks like a shadow in front of a rock outcropping. And I just screamed at him, there it is, there it is. I know this is it. And he looked at me and he said, you're nuts. There's nothing over there. There's nothing there. And I said, I believe there is. And I said, just hear me, have a seat. I'm running down there, and it's about 1.5 kilometers, right? So I run down, I lift up the bushes. There's bushes everywhere by this time. After a fire, it's like the plants grow back with a vengeance. Anyway, so I lift up these bushes, and sure enough, there's my cave. So I get him to come down. We photograph it, and then I come back to the U.S. and I hooked up with my producer and some great folks and produced the film. So it was a completely, I believe I was sent there. I believe that I was guided there. There was a number of things that happened that put me in Alta Paraiso because we had no intention of even staying in Alta Paraiso. My girlfriend didn't know how to drive a car with a clutch, so we burned out 2 clutches and had to wait for cars to be, them to bring us a new car each time, which took hours. And instead of ending up in Cavalcanche, we ended up in Alta Paraiso because of those things happening. So, all of these things that appear to be challenges or delays in your life, there's something, if you look at the higher reason, what else is going on, oftentimes it'll place you in a situation where you're supposed to be at that moment. And that's what happened with me. Otherwise, I would never have found the cave.
Well, Kathleen, thank you for sharing all your information with us. If people want to check out your book or the movie, how do they do that?
Well, you can go to my website, www.templarsinbrazil.com, and you can get you can see both the trailers actually for the first and second film. The Brazilian Templars Mystery is still out on Gaia at this point, so you can access it there. I think you can also access it on Amazon Prime. And my book is A Grail Quest, Discovery of a Mysterious Knights Templar Cave in Brazil. You can access that on Amazon as well. Or you can contact me on my Facebook page, Kathleen Ann Ball, or the Templars in Brazil, and message me on Messenger, and I will send you a signed author's copy.
Well, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
For all the folks out there, if you have ever had a moment where you doubt the life you're living, the direction that your life is taking you, I would just suggest that you do a meditation and ask for direction. And, if you've had a place that you've always wanted to go there, see what opens up, follow the synchronicities that guide you towards your destiny, because it's my personal belief that everyone has a personal journey, has a destiny, and we all are pieces of this new evolution that we're bringing about, this new raising of consciousness. We all have a part in that. And I think, the times of living this 9-to-5 job, having 3.5 children and a beautiful home and blah, blah, blah. I think the times for the emphasis or the importance of those things is leaving us. We're moving into a different dimensional reality where connection with people, compassion, and our spiritual growth are going to be at the forefront of our minds. And I believe that those are the direction that we're heading. So I just want to inspire anyone who has just even had an inkling of a desire to find out that there is more to life than what they have been living. Just do it. Just step out and do it. You'll never regret it.
Kathleen, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
You're very welcome, Jeff. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.